Welcome to Back to Basics, a new ID podcast in association with Schools Management Plus. I'm Simon Lerwill, the Director of Development at Morpeth College and Chair of IDPE. Each week, we're going to hear from an experienced development leader who's part of IDPE's New to Development programme and an expert in a particular area of fundraising and engagement. And I'm delighted today to be joined for our next podcast by Charlotte Sutton, Director of Advancement and Alumni Relations at Bede's School. It's a long job title. Today, Charlotte is going to be sharing her experience and expertise on campaigns. Welcome, Charlotte.
Hello.
So, as you probably know, we start each podcast with a bit of an icebreaker question, which is, what's the fundraising or engagement idea you wish you had thought of and why?
Okay, so I feel like my answer is slightly rubbish, but I go with giving days, not because they're rubbish, but I guess I found those really helpful in the past just because it gives you, it's kind of like doing a big feasibility study again, isn't it? It just gives you something great to aim for. But yeah, also gives you an idea of kind of at the moment what's going on within your school community and who's willing to give.
Yes, we did our first Giving Day a few years ago, and I'm now a big advocate of them as well. Because, and I tell you, people talk about the funds raised, but actually, I've found the internal engagement in terms of telling the story of our campaign and fundraising and getting pupils involved and staff, and it definitely, I think, helps to spread the word internally as well as externally.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun as well, actually. I think a lot of
Yes.
people get swept up, don't they? It's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah, it's a good day. Good. Okay. So Charlotte, interestingly, you were a teacher for a decade before taking on development and alumni relations a couple of years ago. And development can sometimes be a bit of a mystery to teachers, a bit of a mystery art. So what advice would you have for development professionals in terms of internal engagement and comms?
So yeah, I definitely had a bit more buy-in just because I was one of them, and I still kind of teach at the moment. So I have, I guess, a really good understanding of how the year works for a teacher, when to approach them, when is a kind of better time. The school year is so busy, isn't it? I think, especially in the independent sector, there are so many different pools that teachers have. Understanding that, so then using things like CPD days really well, and just kind of popping up and being at staff briefings and just kind of saying, if you've got any news on alumni or anything on, or basically they're the people, teachers are the people that we need to make our jobs work, and reminding them of that. Actually, we're never asking them to ask people for money, which I think is always the fear. It's actually using the information that they have to establish connections or kind of make our conversations really worthwhile. And I think that's really
Yes.
important.
And I think that you say standing up at, inset days and things, I think that's really important. I was given that piece of advice very early on by a teacher, which was, just once a term at least, make sure you stand up and address the common room and explain who you are, what you're doing, what's going on, just to help to demystify what we do and to bring people with you.
Yeah, definitely. I think the power of us turning up to those school events makes a big difference, because highlighting that we're as much a part of the community and kind of, getting that
Yes.
working. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Well, the main theme of the podcast today is campaigns. Fundraising campaigns, for those who don't know, are a wrapper that we put around our fundraising, which gives us a goal, a strategy, messaging, a deadline, all of which help to uplift the amount of money we raise. Or so we hope. So tell me about your campaign at Bede's.
Okay, so to give a bit of context, I guess I was new to the job. We were establishing the development office, so we decided to do a giving day to launch ourselves, to launch our foundation, but also to give ourselves a target, to get all of our data sorted, so that we could do a giving day. So yeah, just to give ourselves a kind of a target and an end goal. So we were aiming to raise, 1.6 million by 2028, because that was probably realistic for where we were at that point. And that's to fund sixth form transformational 110% bursaries. So we'd had a really strong, we have a really strong kind of ethos and experience with looked after children. And that's something that our school's always done really well. So transformational bursaries were the natural next step for us, and that's very much the focus of our foundation. And so, everything that we were doing was gearing up to that. And so things like alumni events and big reunions to kind of re-establish connections with people, all leading towards launching this aim of a sixth form focused transformational bursaries.
Amazing, particularly the focus on looked after children. That's incredible. So you launched a campaign in June 2023. Tell me a bit about the planning you undertook beforehand.
Okay, so we started looking at a very out-of-date database, and then just kind of a load of Excel spreadsheets, and we kind of went through loads of different points. The first thing was just to try and figure out the data, and at one point we ended up deleting everything and starting again, which sounds terrifying, but was very necessary.
Wow.
And just getting all of that in order, and I think that data is the backbone, and people forget that or kind of like to try and skim over that, and you can't. And then the other side is getting people on board. So standing up, I remember January being a really important one for us. I used everything up to the Christmas time just to try and do all of the background work, just getting all of the data and things sorted. But then January we launched to the staff, knowing that the Giving Day was in the June, so I know that that's a really tight turnaround. But just to get staff on board and figuring out actually what that message would look like to them, their buy-in and things like that. And we piggybacked onto something we already had, which was a Make a Difference Day. And the whole idea was with our Giving Day was that our pupils are going out into, it was, over 50 different places to help out across the community, and it was both our prep, our senior, and our support and teaching staff and governors. We got everybody involved, and then the idea was that the alumni and parents and everybody else would give back through donating. So it's a really simple concept, but what was really important was getting that buy-in. So going and turning up to governors' meetings and explaining what it was all about, turning up to kind of all of the different committees, to the senior school, to the prep school, and just putting in that work to give people updates on how it was going, to find the right stories, and all of those learning points of, well, how do you communicate to parents and get that right? Something that we've just never done before. How do you talk to the parents of the students that you'd like to use as examples, especially when you don't have examples of transformational bursary recipients currently? So that's where we could look at kind of looked after children, but then thinking about we had to think everything through, kind of, are they going to be anonymous? What will that look like for us? All of those different kind of things. So it was basically just a real, everything was a learning curve right from the beginning, which was brilliant and exciting.
10 months is quite quick, isn't it? I mean, normally preparing for a campaign, you would probably want at least 18 months. So 10 months is quite quick.
Yeah, I mean, we had our feasibility study from, we had Gifted Philanthropy come in, but that was a little while before. So we knew it was possible, and the senior leadership were very much on board. So I guess sometimes getting senior leaders on board can take quite a long time, I think. But I was really lucky that I already had that, and they were kind of my biggest advocates. That groundwork was done, but I would recommend having a much longer lead time into it, and trying your best to make sure you've got kind of a good team behind you as well, because I didn't have anybody helping until the January, and then it was by the time the Giving Day came, I had 2 part-time staff who had never done anything like that before. So that was brilliant, but it was hardcore.
And you launched the campaign using a Giving Day, which I am a big fan of. So just tell me a bit more about the thinking behind that.
So we wanted to kind of come out with a bang. So we did, and we did multiple things all across kind of the 2 days. So we launched the Giving Day. We had everybody on the first day going out doing their volunteering. We had all of the kind of the online stuff. In the evening, we launched our foundation and had people kind of coming in to hear about that and what that looked like. So that was really nice. We kind of had the online dimension, and then we had the in the room. And then the second day was kind of just giving, our international community time to kind of get on board and see everything. And we live stream. Well, we wanted to live stream, but we couldn't. So we recorded and then sent that out. but that was tough. That was tough trying to do all of the things you have to do for a giving day, whilst also doing an event with a live Q&A with trustees. Yeah, that was quite stressful. It was amazing, but yeah, definitely, yes.
That is a lot, but I do. So at Marlborough, we launched our campaign with a giving day, called it a launch day, and I had this feeling that it would work well. And actually, I do think giving days are a really good way to launch a campaign because they just, as you say, with a bang, because the whole community is involved. You've got people giving online. There's loads of comms, there's loads of
Absolutely.
videos, there's loads of buzz and emails. So no one then can be in any doubt you've launched a campaign. So
Absolutely.
I think that's a great way to launch a campaign. Right, final question on the campaign. How's it going now, and what have you learned?
So we've learnt loads. So we did really well in our first year, as you kind of expect, I guess, with the first year. And it's that I think it's that second year that's it's tough to go from okay, so fundraising is new to our community, and trying to figure out how to make those one-off donations turn into regular donors or kind of warming up prospects to turn them into kind of major donors and starting that journey for everybody, because basically that's what your giving day is when you start a campaign like that. It is then putting in all of that hard work and thinking about, well, what's happening after the giving day. So all of the work up to the giving day is really important, and the giving day itself, but where are you going next? And really thinking that plan through, I think, is really important. And having maybe a 6 month to a year plan for how you're going to use all of that incredible data, because that's what you're doing your giving day for, isn't it? Getting the most up-to-date data on people. So yeah, it's going well. I think the second year is much harder, but you'd expect that. And then I think we have found it really helpful to come back together now that we have a more established team, and to talk through, well, then year on year, how are we adjusting our strategy to make sure that we meet our target, which is, for us, probably more than achievable, but making that kind of hard work and data work for us. But what we're learning, how is that informing what we're doing next? If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's the age-old problem. The second album. The
Yeah.
One of the hardest things with launching any campaign actually is planning what comes after the launch, because the launch is so much work that often people don't put enough thought into what happens after you launch.
So one thing, and that's probably what I should say. So we tried to tie everything really clearly to the values and the ethos of the school, because your parents, your alumni, they've already bought into that. And so then things like our regular giving campaign, and that we then launched the kind of Easter afterwards. So we had quite a long lead time into that. We linked that to the school's focus on kindness, and we called that 100 acts of kindness, just because I think parents were used to that messaging, and that seems to have kind of gained some traction, and is something we're
Yeah,
going to build upon.
that's a really nice idea. Right, final question of the podcast. What's the one piece of advice you'd wish you'd been given when you started out?
Don't rush. Give yourself lots of time. I think that was just to make sure that you're kind of, which sounds silly that I'm saying that, but yeah, just to make sure that you're doing it right. And if you're new to the job, to give yourself time to get a handle on actually what you're doing. I think it's a job that can feel quite lonely, and so you can end up second guessing yourself. So lean on IDP as well. I think as a community, it's really strong, and it's got quite a lot of resources, and there's always someone you can reach out to. So I think get out of your office and meet people kind of in your local area as well. I think IDP is quite good for that, and just making those connections. It's important.
100%. All the best support and the best ideas I've come up with have been because I've spoken to someone else in another school. So yeah, definitely. I think that IDP community is really important, and one reason I think it's so strong. Well, that's a good moment to end on, given it's an IDP podcast. Thank you for sharing your time and expertise today, Charlotte. And finally, remind you can hear more from Charlotte talking about campaigns as part of the IDP's New to Development program. The program is launching this month and provides introduction to all of the fundamentals of schools fundraising and engagement. So whether you're new to the sector or in the process of setting up an office, head to the IDP website to find out more. Thanks for listening. See you next time.